What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh RN podcast. I am Katie Kleber, your host, and I have a special guest today. I have Miss Brittany Wilson. She is the owner of the Nerdy Nurse website, awesome resource, international speaker, best-selling author, all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to talk today. We're going to do a little fun role play situation.
Mm-hmm.
Also, thank you for coming. I didn't let you say hi to anybody.
I was just looking forward to it. For those of you that don't know, Katie and I have been like nursey BFFs for years and years now. And we've done a lot of things like this together in the past. And we have very different personalities, but they complement each other perfectly. So it's always fun for me when I can come on here. Right? Always fun for me when we can come on here. I'm really excited about this today because you're all about helping new nurses grow and become more confident in their work and not feel dumb every day, because like I did. So we're going to help with that.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is Brittany is going to pretend to be a new nurse and ask me some of the questions that both of us like wished we could ask some experienced hospital nurse. Like, hey, can I ask you these? And I don't want to look stupid, but can you just tell me what it's really like so I can walk in feeling not as terrified? Like, I remember that very vividly. Senior year of nursing school, I literally didn't know any nurses. I only knew the ones at clinical, and I wanted to impress them. I didn't know any of my new coworkers. Also wanted to impress them. So me and Brittany, we're gonna help you out, and pre-answer some questions here from our experience. So she's going to ask a question, I'm going to answer it, and then she'll probably have lovely insight. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, Brittany had mentioned we have done this before. One of my top YouTube videos of all time is an interview with Brittany. Y'all should check it out. I'll put a link to it.
I won't have to retell my sad preceptor story.
Oh yeah, it was tough. Yeah, you guys should listen to that one. Or you can listen to it on the podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube. But it's a great interview. As you can, it was released a while ago. It still gets great views, I think, because it resonates so well. Mm-hmm. So, hi, new nurse Brittany. Nursing student
Hi.
Brittany.
Katie, I'm so excited to meet with you today. I hear you're a fantastic preceptor, and I've heard really great things about how you help nurses not feel so intimidated about their work. So I have a list of questions for you. I'm so thankful for your time, and I was wondering if I could just rally them off, because frankly, I do not want to ask any of the nurses I work with because they're so busy and I don't want to look stupid. So the first question I have, and I'm freaking out about this a little bit because I've never worked in a direct patient care situation. I've worked like retail or, some other little things. So I've interacted with the public, but like these people are going to be naked. I'm touching body parts. There's gross things. I'm nervous about just what to expect on the first day, and then how I can deal with the emotions that come with that. Like what can I do to get myself in that patient room on that very first day?
Great question. I felt like that too. Like as a new nurse, I had the only hospital experience I had was my clinicals. And as y'all know, and actually those of you post-COVID, I believe there has been quite a few changes to all that stuff. It has kind of changed our ability to really get in there and have good experience. So I think the first thing, just to talk about what to expect, I think expectations, when you're aware of what to see or what will happen, it can bring down that anxiety a little bit. Some level of familiarity can be like, okay. So one thing I want you to know going into that first day is no one's expecting you to be perfect. No one's expecting you to come in and just like know what to do or have all the right questions to ask. Typically the first few shifts, and let's say you have gotten done with your like hospital orientation where you sit in a classroom and say, yes, I'm not going to write on social media my patient's social security number or something. Those things. We've gotten through that. We're here our first day, you're with your preceptor. That first day, hopefully, is really going to be a lot of you shadowing. You're going to follow this person around. It's going to feel weird. You're going to feel like their service dog walking around with them. Like you're going to feel a little ridiculous walking around everywhere, but you really, this is a very important like way to acclimate yourself to this environment. And I want you to be very observant, and I want you to like know, okay, I'm not going to do a whole lot today. If this person asks me to do various tasks and jump in, great. But you're not going to walk in day one assuming care for people. And I think that is a really good like reassurance, because you feel so unprepared. You're not going to be like, all right, here, go take care of this patient. I'll see you later. If that happens, there's a big safety concern. There's no way that should happen with a brand new nurse onto a unit, especially a new hospital. So know that you're going to follow somebody around. It's going to feel a little awkward, but you're going to pay attention to how they take report, what questions they ask. Now, you might be taking a report too. It is, I encourage for you to observe as much as you can, but maybe try to practice taking a report and notice what questions they ask. Where's their mind going? Don't tell yourself, oh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Just observe the fact that they asked the question. Notice how they choose which patient to see when, how they delegate tasks. How they cluster care. Oh, okay, I got to go in and do an assessment. Oh, are they going to go grab all the glucose stuff and get vitals, or do they wait for the CNA to go do that? Or, like really pay attention to how this preceptor is handling their day. They can only explain to you so much, but you can get so much more out of it if you're observing the things that they're just not explaining. Hopefully, they are narrating what they're doing. They might not be. Be prepared. Maybe you don't have the best preceptor or someone who's the best teacher. That's just luck of the draw, unfortunately. Some people are phenomenal nurses. They're not great teachers, and that's okay. This is very human. So I want you to take ownership of your own learning and your own orientation, and advocate for what you need. So you're going to just pay attention those first few days, and then hopefully you're going to be slowly given more responsibility. So that day, following around, observing what they're doing, not also noticing where things are in the supply room, in the clean supply. Where do people put dirty things? How do they delegate to CNAs? Who are the CNAs? Who are my colleagues? You really want to pay attention to all of the people you're going to be working with, because you're jumping into a team that works together, and you want to notice the dynamics of the team. You don't need to be best friends. And my big thing that I tell people is you know how people say, oh, we want you to be your authentic self at work. No, they don't. They want to say that, and they want to make it look like that's what their value is as a company. People don't want that. They want the best version of you. They want the professional version of you to show up. You don't need to be best friends with everybody. They don't need to know everything about you. We don't need, a lot of people are curious. Don't tell everybody all your life story as soon as you walk in the door and someone's nice and kind to you. I really want you to be have some discernment over what to share and what not to share, and that this is a professional environment, and show up as that best version of yourself, or that professional version of yourself. That's what is necessary in this aspect of your life. I know nursing school was all encompassing and really took over your whole life. Now we're entering the phase of life where this is your professional identity, not your entire identity. I hope that makes sense. And I think that if you can reframe it like that, it makes you take things a lot less personally, or impact you in a way that is like, oh my gosh, like really rocks you. I think that can help kind of de-emphasize some of that. Okay, this is work, and yeah, I'm going to try my best at work and do the best I can and do what I know I need to do, but it's not every aspect of who I am. So, oh, I can't hear you.
That was so good. That was so helpful. In fact, another nurse I had asked some questions to told me very similar things. But she also added, for the neurodivergent girlies, the ones who have strong senses of justice and can't keep their mouth shut, that you need to keep your mouth shut above all else, especially for that first week. I do not care unless they're about to kill somebody. You keep your mouth shut, and you smile, and you're thankful, and you're gracious. It's extra work for them. Like, don't come in there with a sense of entitlement because you passed the NCLEX and you're this new amazing nurse. Be gracious and thankful you're there. Know that information is power. So like you said, people are going to be nosy. Do not assume everyone there is out for your best interest. This may be the first time that you're in a situation where you're dealing with grown women, and men, and sometimes they're not. They're looking for dirt. They're looking for things to disrupt. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but just consider that. And don't create any extra work for anyone. And this is like just a pro tip. If you're someone who tends to stick your foot in your mouth and you're anticipating that you're going to irritate somebody at some point with your personality, because it just happened in the past, bring food, donuts, like a snack tray. Doesn't have to be super expensive, but it starts you out on kindness. And especially if you're the person who does it every now and then, everybody likes the food lady. So
yes, these are wonderful points. I think those levels of self-awareness are so important. Like to notice, okay, I tend to overshare, or I tend to say things that are not appropriate, or I'm coming in hot. And like, okay, this reminds me, I remember I love financial podcasts. And have you ever watched Caleb Hammer? He has a really good one. And he we'll have people on there and they'll tell them why they're in this bad financial situation and all that. And there's people on there who will say, people don't like me at work and because I'm too honest, and they just can't handle the truth or and it's like, all right, guys, you may feel like there are specific things that you really think this should be done differently. And I think this is wrong. And why would you do that this way? Okay. There is a time and a place for that kind of feedback that is tactfully provided. And it also, like, if you're coming in hot day 1, day 2, and you're a brand new nurse, orientation, you're like, this should be done completely differently than the way that you guys have been doing this, or this policy that's been well researched. And I know better that this is, you know what I mean? We need to have self-awareness. And like you said, like there are some of us that might feel like, we feel this moral, like whatever, to tell everybody exactly how we feel. Please have some tact and some awareness about when that's appropriate, if you're sharing it with the right person. And typically when we're brand new, we don't necessarily have the context of the way the environment is. Yes, there are some not so great facilities out there. Yes, there are going to be places where you do need to like say things early that are very unsafe. Those are the exception, not the rule, where it's like, okay, guys, let's have awareness about that and really stay focused. The goal is for you not to be the absolute best nurse in the whole world and prove everybody wrong and be this. And I need you to just function safely at work and get through work without, like, I think that's a tactic or a reframe that's really important, because going from nursing school, where it's your whole world and kind of your whole identity, to being a nurse, maybe you were the top person in class or one of the top people or one of the best performers or whomever. Switching from nursing school to being on a unit is a big change, because it's like there's no contest here. There's no grading here. There's being safe with your patients and doing a pretty good job. And then there's the gray into like, okay, now that's a lower quality. Okay, now we're getting into unsafe. Like, the goal is for you to function safely. You're not going to be perfect at the beginning. And people, I think, really shoot themselves in the foot for being like, oh, I was this A+ student. I can't believe I didn't know X, Y, and Z, or didn't do this right or whatever. And I think if we manage those expectations and have a realistic goal of not being the perfect best nurse and that's everybody's best friends, but like, I'm just trying to get to work without crying.
speaking of, handling yourself functionally, emotionally, and whatnot, and changes, should we say a shift in things? Tell me about how I can manage a 12-hour shift. I've worked a little bit, in nursing school, I couldn't do all that much, but I've never worked a 12-hour shift. And I'm even told I might have to do some night shift at first, because that's where a lot of new nurses start. So I have no idea what to do. Do I meal prep? Do I have a life on those days? Help me figure out what to expect.
Yes. So like shift work, going from school to shift work is a big lifestyle shift. So let's talk about it in two ways. We'll talk about the lifestyle aspect and we'll talk about the clinical aspect. Okay. First, I want to talk about clinical. 12 hours is a long time. It's a very long time. And I think the best way to work through that is to look at your shift in chunks and like, let me get through. I like to like your first sprint, your second sprint. So like there's a way that a lot does depend on your unit. This would not be the same for an OR nurse. This would not be the same for maybe a clinic nurse. But if you are in like an inpatient setting, that, you clock in, you get your ready for report, you take report, and then I want you just to focus on getting through that first med pass and first assessments and getting the important things, not necessarily everything, but the important things documented. That's your first sprint. And really, especially on a med surg unit, if you can get that good foundation where you've seen everybody, you've assessed everybody, and you've medicated everybody, because that 9 a.m. med pass and 9 p.m. med pass is the biggest one usually. So if you can lay eyes on everybody and put out the little fires, make sure everybody's stable. They should be your med surg, and get a plan in your brain about how you're going to do the next 8 hours. I think that's great. So let's get through the first sprint, recollect. Then it's like a little bit of a mini sprint, and then a break, mini sprint, bigger sprint. Like I like to look at it like in chunks. And then if you feel extremely overwhelmed, which you will, because it's like, oh my God, I have 9,000 things to do right now, and I've got 7 hours left of the shift. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I think the best thing in those situations is to really look at the very little next steps you have to take. Focus on those little ones. Don't think about the fact that you've got to hang a unit of blood in 45 minutes, or that you've got to transfer this patient out and you're going to get another one in 2 hours. Don't think about that. I want you to think about getting that blood sugar right now and covering them with insulin and going to the next room and giving them their pill and rechecking their pain. And you're just going to get those things done. Focus on those for just a few moments. And when we can accomplish a few things and focus on those, it can kind of regulate our overwhelm. And then we're able to view the rest of the shift with a little bit more of a balanced perspective, and that it's actually like doable and you can do it. So that's clinical aspect. Let's talk lifestyle, because I think this is such a key that we forget, and we think people can just figure this out. But 12 hours is a very long time. And it's also not just physically a long time to be running around, also just to be cognitively focused. Like to focus mentally on anything. I don't care if you're at a desk job or running around a nursing unit, like focusing for 12 hours, even if it's like intermittent, is a lot of mental work. So I think that that's an important thing. It's not just physical work, it's mental work. So I really recommend very much preparing for those shift days, so that when you are going to work and coming home from work, you have everything you need, but you don't have to think about it. So I love meal prepping. So like, let's say you worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. I'd use the day or two before I wouldn't be packing that with all these things to do and run around. I'd be getting ready for my shifts. I'll make sure I have all my laundry done for those 3 shifts for that week, so that I'm not trying to shove a load of laundry in after a shift to try to wake up and put them in the drawer or whatever. Don't do that. I want you to make sure that the before each chunk of like 3 shifts that you have your shift together. That you Brittany's muted right now, but she's laughing really hard. I just feel like you guys should know that joke did land. It landed. But so like get that laundry together. Like if I'm someone who I don't want to think about like even just going down to the cafeteria and picking out something to eat. If I can just have a break and all I have to do is like go to the fridge, I get my food and I eat it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to make any decisions. So decision fatigue for a nurse during a shift is obscene. Every moment you are making decisions. So if you can offload that to things that you can pre-make those decisions, like this is what I'm going to eat. This is what I'm going to eat before the shift, after the shift, during the shift. This is the stuff that I need. It's set out the night before, like that kind of stuff. I really want you to do those things, because then that can make your shift better. Because I know not everybody participated in athletics, but that was something that I relate to and I use it as an example all the time. But I want you to think of shift days as game day, right? Oh. Like you get some good sleep the night before. You kind of you get your headphones on, you get yourself pumped up, you know what I mean? You put yourself You do these various things to get your body and your brain ready to go to perform. Well, that's what these are. I want you to consider that, like, okay, what do I need to do to get myself ready? And maybe I think for a lot of people that would be not overscheduling yourself during your days off so that you can function the best during those 12-hour shifts. Also know that that's going to be just a big lifestyle change and that you're going to be exhausted, and that's normal. That doesn't mean that you're out of shape. That doesn't mean, who knows? But I don't want you to like say, oh, I'm so tired. If I worked out more or if I did whatever, I wouldn't be this tired. Like, this is just exhausting work. And that's, let's be honest, this is exhausting work. And we need to do the best we can to prepare for it and to recover from it. So you had a 12-hour shift. If it's a day shift, don't go, I'm sure y'all are younger and want to go out and whatever. But if you got to shift the next day, or if you're, I want you to recover, go home, let your body and your brain be in silence or next to silence or something so that you can recover, so that you can be ready, for the next time you have to perform, essentially.
Well, speaking of performance, it's like you read my mind because I did not play a sport. I took karate for a very long time, and I stayed at a very low belt because it's awful torture. It was like being waterboarded. My parents stopped paying for it years before I stopped, but the guy in charge was like determined to make me like it, and it just
didn't happen.
Thanks, Mr. Rick. You were so I didn't do that, but I did do musical theater. So this is like getting ready for showtime. So if you never played sports and you didn't get ready for game day and you did musical theater or you spoke or anything, getting ready for showtime. So it's like our brains were connected.
Well,
so
can I just, before we move from one quick thing, like, and you know what? Game day is fun.
Yeah.
When you know what you're doing, you feel confident with it, you feel rested, you have all your stuff together. You know what I mean? You got a good snack to look forward to. And now at orientation, you're probably not going to feel like this. But when you know what you're doing and you show up, you got a good shift, you can handle the things that come your way. You're literally saving lives. Like, you have tearful patient. Thank you so much for what you've done and how you've helped me. It feels amazing. So I want to make sure that you keep that in mind, that's what we're shooting for. That's what our aim is that we're getting ready for game day. We like game day, and we give money for game day.
Yeah. For musical theater.
Yeah.
So a nurse I know that, I had asked these questions. By the way, nurses don't like it when you ask more than one of them the same question. Just that's a snippet from the Preceptor podcast. Said something similar about laundry and told me about how they had to wear wet scrubs and like they were just damp walking in the unit one day because they had nothing else. You don't have a lot of money then either, so it's not like you have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was meal prep. Like you usually when you're a new nurse, you're younger, and so you haven't done a lot of things on your own. And so meal prep and learning how to just feed yourself is a new transition.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be at work with nothing and then having to scrounge around and use your precious lunch break to go get a meal. Bring something to lunch that's high protein that you enjoy eating and use it like, scroll TikTok or whatever, and make sure your meals are enjoyable. And if you are a snacker, bring those. So those were the big ones that I got. So when I get into this long, predictable shift, and you mentioned overwhelm, one of the things that I know is going to be a problem for me, we've already talked about I'm neurodivergent, is if there's a lot going on, I can sometimes shut down and panic about what to prioritize. Now, maybe I'll get this at some point and I want it to become second nature, but I am not sure outside of the ABCs, what I'm supposed to prioritize. You mentioned already your med passes and, doing checks and making sure there's no fires. But what if I have like a dressing change and somebody wants something for pain? Do you have any tips or tricks to help me figure out what I prioritize first?
Yes. So that's a great question, because we talk a lot about the ABCs, which you can figure out pretty quickly. But those times where everybody's stable, now what do I do? Those are the harder but much more frequent decisions. So step one is manage overwhelm first to enable you to think clearly and logically. Because if we're trying to think logically when we're having a huge like shutdown, it's very difficult. So the quick thing that you can do, number one, notice, oh, I'm shutting down. I feel overwhelmed. Tell yourself that in your brain. Just like verbalizing that even internally can actually regulate the emotion. Another thing to know is you're not going to logic your way out of a feeling of overwhelm. Like you can't talk yourself out of it because you're just going to make yourself more overwhelmed. You can say the perfect thing to yourself, but it's not. We need to regulate the emotion, not the thought. So what I want you to do when you notice that, if possible, I'd like you to go to the bathroom and just quick pee break. You don't have to pee. I don't know. I'm not in there, but
I pee when I get nervous.
there you go. Perfect. 2 things at once. We will do this. Okay. So don't try to logic yourself out there. The goal here, I need to regulate my emotion. I need to regulate my feeling of overwhelm so I can think clearly. Okay, great. Even just telling yourself that will probably get you 40% of the way there. I'm not going to lie. Then I want you to take deep belly breaths and just only think about the breathing. Okay. Stimulates your vagus nerve, your 10th cranial nerve. It brings your heart rate down. It can, okay. And it regulates that emotion and gets it out of you. Okay. It allows you to process it, because if you just try to think yourself out of it, you're not really letting yourself get through the emotion. Okay. We need to work through that emotion, let it pass. And that really could take seconds. So I like to call it my little self-compassion break. You go in the bathroom, you tell yourself exactly what you're feeling, or try to tell yourself okay, I feel overwhelmed. I can't even think clearly. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm overwhelmed. I want you to take deep breaths. Remind yourself, everybody gets overwhelmed. That's the key one, I think, because when we feel inadequate, we feel like we're the only one, especially in like a training environment, and all these people look so competent and I'm the idiot who can't do it. Remind yourself that everybody feels overwhelmed. All these nurses who are doing great right now were where I was. It's okay. And then I want you to tell yourself, I got this. Give yourself a little warmth, a little pep talk, a little encouragement. I can do this. So none of that was like, all of that is just emotional regulation. Okay. It literally can take 20 seconds in the bathroom, or 20 seconds pretending looking at your phone in the corner. Okay. Do that first. Then you're going to think better. Okay. So it's hard to tell you exactly what to do because there's so many different things that could happen. But when I'm like, okay, I'm so busy, I don't know what to do first. I actually, if there's a lot of high priority things and you're especially new in your development and you have a preceptor, what I would do, regulate myself. And then I also, when I do that, I'll have a more calm, collected, balanced. I'm not frantic. I know I need to do stuff. So what I would do myself is I would go to my preceptor and I would say, I have so many things to do right now. I am having a difficult time prioritizing. Can I tell you what it is? And I think just verbalizing it out loud might help me figure it out. And I can tell you my plan, and maybe you can tell me, you can tweak it. I can't tell you how many times I did, especially in the ICU when the stakes are a little higher and it's a little more like titrating drips and that kind of thing. So don't be afraid of that. And if you can calmly and securely and confidently just communicate that, like your preceptor doesn't know. And also don't expect people to see that you're overwhelmed and know and come in and rescue you. You probably have a better poker face than you realize. And we're also so busy that we are so busy and focused on our own task list. Ain't nobody noticing you're overwhelmed. I'm sorry. I know you won't, and I would,
Not all about you.
Yeah, I mean, we're so in our own worlds, and in normal life, we're in our own worlds. Let alone when you're with all these other nurses and CNAs that have a task list that's a mile long. They are engrossed in it. So if you need help, bro, you got to ask for it. You got to have the balls to just be like, hey, I'm not sure what to do next. And whatever advice they give you, you need to remember it. You need to consider that way as you make decisions going forward. Generally speaking, if I'm like, I have a whole bunch of tasks that I need to do, I would look for the time sensitive ones first. So things like Coumadin or Lovenox or insulin, if those meds were coming up and I had other things to do, I would be scheduling it around that or thinking, prioritizing around that. I also would be thinking, what can I delegate? What can I cluster together? Okay, this patient needs, I have a patient that needs to go to the bathroom who also needs a pain med. And then I have another patient who wants something general, who
blanket. They want a warm blanket.
they want a warm blanket. They want a Sprite with a splash of cranberry. Delicious. Okay. I'm not going to delegate taking that patient to the bathroom. I'm going to, if there's, I'm going to ask the CNA to do the other one so that I will take the patient to the bathroom and I will do their pain med and I will do both of those at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, what can I cluster?
Not an IV pain med before you send them to the bathroom. So,
What'd you say?
Not an IV pain medication before you send them to the bathroom.
Correct. Yes. But like those kind of things, what can I delegate? What can someone else, if I'm truly that busy that I have 20 things that need to be done urgently or very quickly, you often need to pull somebody else in. And it happens. I mean, you and we helped other nurses out who were busy 20 times a shift. I literally every shift I worked, I probably gave at least one med for another nurse. That's the way this works. You can't, I would see people delegate as a last resort when it's really a safety measure. It's not a last resort. We're all here together to take care of this group of patients together. It's not as if the only people who delegate are the poor time management people. We literally all have to do it. So don't go in with that mindset of, I'm only going to delegate if I fail. No, literally everybody delegates. So you need to do that. There's no way that you can do this all yourself. And it's actually unsafe for you to attempt to do everything yourself. That's a long thing. I could go into that. I will stay focused, Brittany. I will stay focused.
I can't guarantee I will.
So consider what can be delegated. Like, so a big thing is, let's say you have some serious stuff going down, but then all your patients are on the call out or whatever. What are the things that only you as the patient's nurse can do? Maybe talking to the physician, or specific, that's probably the biggest one. I'm like trying to think, is there like, or a reassessment from an assessment you did earlier. Other than that, there's a lot that you can delegate to other nurses and other CNAs, especially if you have somebody going downhill. So keep that in mind of what is it that only I can do. Any nurse on that unit can give a pill. They can give a heparin injection. CNAs can put those SCD pumps back on, put the TED hose back on, whatever. But if your patient's going downhill and you had to call a rapid response, you need to be there. Or if you're concerned about doing it, like that's the priority, that's what you need to do. Only you can do, because you're the only one that has that holistic picture. So keep that in mind, even with the smaller things where if maybe you have one patient needs a pain med, there's a family member on the phone for an update, there's a pharmacist on the phone for another patient, and then let's say an IV is beeping for another one. So I can delegate the pain med. I'm telling that family member to call back. I think people need permission for that. Like, yes, we want to make sure that you call family members back, or that they call back, or you touch base. But being interrupted many, many times over a shift to update a family over giving a pain med, like we need to be able to say, hey, I'm going to call you back. I can't just drop everything.
An app for that, frankly.
Yeah, there should be.
Let's do it together. Let's
all
do
right.
it.
Copyright, trademark. Don't take it from us. But so back to that example. So I delegate the pain med. I would tell the family member to call back. I'm talking to the pharmacist because likely I'm the one who paged them, or that they have a question about a med that I'm probably the only one who can answer that question. And then the IV pump, I can ask another, hey, can you run in there and check that for me real quick? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. And the more efficient you get, the less of a burden these will feel like. I mean, at the beginning, if I asked a nurse to hang an IV bag of fluid for me, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't, that's the biggest task. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I have to ask you. No. The people who are experienced, like they can do things that they don't seem nearly as overwhelming to those of us who are new. I mean, as you get experience, your perspective will change on that. So I think that's some reassurance to have too with the delegation to one another. And the big piece of delegating to your CNAs and your fellow nurses is you need to be nice. You need to be grateful.
I honestly, that's what I was thinking the whole time you were saying that. Is speaking of, trusting, delegating, you want to make sure that you're able to build a trusting relationship, and that starts with respect. Knowing that you're a team, you have to be a little bit vulnerable, and letting somebody do something for your patient. That's another story. Is a level of vulnerability, but you also need to be very gracious. You don't have to thank them a million times, but just know that don't be the arrogant one that's like, I'm an RN, so I didn't have to wipe butts, which is something I've heard people say more than once. So, a nurse told me that they heard them say that more than once. So be that person. And one of the other tips is, if you know you have a tendency to get overwhelmed, if there's a lot going on, and prioritization is always something you struggle with, like if you have ADHD and you need to do the laundry, but you reorganize the pantry instead. Like if you know that's you, and I know somebody's in their car laughing right now. Like I can just it would be me, because that's me. One of the things that's really effective is for you to figure out whatever type of report sheet that you can do and plan your day out. Take the 15 to 20 minutes in the morning after you've made sure there's no big fires and you've laid eyes on your patients, or if you get there early, one of the other, and plan your day out. Some people use like a grid. So if they have 4 patients, they have a grid with times, and then they have a symbol system. These are meds, these are whatevers, these are checks. That's really helpful. You're going to have to delegate from it, but it keeps you from thinking about all those tasks at once when you put them out and put them on that paper. So that's a really big one, is to time block and have something visual that you can check off, because it's satisfying.
And we have those in MedSurg Mindset.
You have a report sheet. Yeah.
I have both kinds. I have a regular report sheet that I personally liked better, but there's also the grid. And I also have a multiple examples of reports, so you can practice report before you go. And you can also, I have a video of us filling out the time block sheet. So you can see how that's done, so that walk in with that degree of familiarity. So that's in the MedSurg Mindset course.
And a list of medical abbreviations, and those are free.
Yeah, I have one of those. Yes, which helps you fly through report much better. And if you can have a little bit of an understanding, or if you can have it saved on your phone and you go through report and you're like, what did that mean? But there's some of these that you Google them, you might not find it, because it's like some of them might be nurse slang or like nurse not necessarily approved. So I have a list of all the most common ones that I used at the bedside, so that you can just take a look. You don't need to ask anybody. You can look super smart and be like, oh yeah, I know what that means. So
#, don't assume they're approved at your organization. So you need to get your facilities copy to see which ones you can use in the chart.
Yes, because report sheet and chart are very different. Report sheet, no one's keeping that. Like you're going to shred that. That's just to help you get through the day.
You can't really take it home with you, because it might have PHI on it as well.
And that's an important thing. People with report, I feel like it's their report card, and they have to get it perfect. And they fill out all the things. It has to look nice. And then they have to have it feel like if they didn't do this certain things, or cross off this or do that, it gives them like a anxiety and they don't like it. But here's the thing. Literally no one but you is using it. It is a tool to help you get through your shift and check off all your boxes and be informed about what's going on with your patient. So don't give that this, someone's going to look at this. You're going to shred it. It's no one's giving you a grade on it. No one's like, oh, you're a bad nurse because you didn't do whatever. Like, I knew nurses who pulled out a blank sheet of paper on med surg and in the ICU because that was their report sheet. And they, you know what I mean? And they got all their stuff done. I don't care what happened. Just get your stuff done. And this is supposed to help you get your stuff done and be informed. So that's I'll get off that soapbox.
So speaking of getting your stuff done in the middle of the day, what if an emergency happens? Like, I don't want to be the person in the room that's like Ricky Bobby and I don't know what to do with my hands. And I don't know what to do. I mean, in theory, I kind of have an idea, but I'm panicking. I kind of want to run out and leave at this point because there's a person appears to me actively dying. Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to do? It's my patient. It's not my patient. Like, what's my responsibility in that situation? What are the other nurses around me going to expect me to be capable of? And what do I need to avoid that will really piss somebody off or create an unsafe situation? So dealing with emergencies, codes and things like that in particular.
Oh, that's a good question, because that's the thing we're like always scared as they're around the corner. Like, oh my God, I just hope it's not my patient. I hope I'm not the first one in there or whatever. So first of all, you are a human who is working as a nurse in a hospital. And let's say another human in front of you starts dying. So when you think about the context, like, that's a big deal. Innately, you will probably freeze the first few times you see that. And you've had all this training and all these ACLS or BLS classes, and you've done the code simulator and you've done blah, blah, blah. And yet when it happens, you're going to freeze. So first of all, that's a very normal human response of how your body responds when you have a very like an alarming like trigger, essentially. Like, I know that word is kind of overused right now, but it is a literal seeing someone dying in front of you, fight or flight or freeze. A lot of us
response.
Yeah. It's beyond your control. And what do we worry about? We only worry about things we can control, right? You can't control that. So your body's going to respond some way. I definitely froze the first few times, and then I beat myself up about it. So first of all, know that you're probably going to freeze. Give yourself a second. That whole, like, I'm not dumb, I'm just panicking kind of thing. So that doesn't mean you're dumb. That means like your brain, you can't access the prefrontal cortex or all that good, wonderful knowledge that you have, that you've worked so hard to obtain. It's still there, my friend. What will happen? What I recommend is taking some deep breaths, and then it depends. It really clinically depends on the situation. If someone has coded, the most important thing is to assess if they have a pulse, if they don't get on the chest. And that's my thing. If you can remember like simple phrases that helps you kind of snap back into it. So like, I like to think, get on the chest, get on the chest, get on the chest, because it's the most important thing if they don't have a pulse. Someone else is going to come in and worry about the airway, but you need that heart beating. And I have another podcast episode where I talk about this, and someone messaged me and said, I had a code after I listened to that podcast, and I got on that chest because you said, get on the chest so many times.
Get on the chest.
Get on the DNR. Yeah. No, the constants. Yeah.
And then if they're DNR, but their family member beside them is saying, save them, you get on the chest.
Yes. So I think that's an important thing. Now, granted, that, especially in the med-surg world, that doesn't happen terribly often, let alone it being you in the room and it happens. You know what I mean? I was a nurse. I can't remember how long I was, maybe a year before that actually happened to me. And I know nurses, a couple of people I worked with had been there for years and had not actually had a code yet. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen necessarily all the time in certain units.
A nurse I know, their very first week on a unit, they were doing some vital signs and stuff, and they went in on a patient who was a DNR, and they were without a pulse. They didn't know what to do. So they walked out very calmly to the nurse's station. They at least knew that the patient was a DNR, and said, the patient has expired. At which point, everyone in the room looked at them like they were crazy, because who would say that? Like, you just try to calm as collectly as possible. And then they were quick-witted about that. They said, oh, well, you need to go get a blood pressure. And they made that nurse take a blood pressure on a dead person that was very clearly dead and had been dead a while. She had been dead at least an hour. That was the last check. Like, she's stiff, nearly. So
that is hazing.
Yes.
That is not appropriate.
It was.
That is not appropriate. That didn't happen to me, but I've had other people tell me similar things. Now, granted, this is years ago. I'm really hoping that
I still think
doesn't
about
happen.
it. It's like traumatic.
It is traumatic. It is not appropriate. It's like, so if let's roll back. Let's say, like, if that were to happen and you were to go in and your DNR patient has expired, like, and you need to tell somebody else about it, lead with their DNR. Hey, my patient who's a DNR, I think that she's passed away. And if they said, okay, we need to get a blood pressure, I would be like, and what would that tell us? Like, what would that accomplish? Like,
I can clearly see they're dead.
There's not going to be a blood pressure. Is that really part of the checklist?
She's cold.
She's cold. There's no pulse. If there's no pulse, there's no blood pressure. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's
zero.
It's zero.
I've already checked.
We've already checked.
Visual on that one. That's the only time you can do a visual blood pressure is when you've already assessed that there's no pulse. You can visually.
Yeah. Or you time of death.
Zero pressure. You can also feel that there's zero pressure because you're not feeling the pulse.
Yeah.
Pulsing.
Yes. So, but those situations, I think we tend to be the hardest on ourselves. The things that you don't want to do are like leave the room. And especially if it's your patient. And it sounds crazy to say that, but people do that. They do kind of freak out a little bit and don't know what to do, don't know what to say. Often what will happen is a physician or someone will come in and they'll need a little bit of a history on the patient. That's why that beautiful report sheet is really helpful, because in those moments, it's like, yeah, I know I was told this. I don't remember anything. And that's normal. Like, to have something crazy happen and like, and to forget things and to, you know what I mean? We're all kind of in a panic state, and the people who aren't are the ones who have done this a million times and often are the ones who are responding, and it's not their actual patient. So I think when you have those emergencies happen, recognize that you're probably going to freeze, and that's okay. And the more exposure you have to them, the better you are going to respond in the moment. And then if it's clinically a code, check that pulse, get on the chest. And, if someone has already gotten on the chest, then you would go to the airway, turn up that bag valve mask all the way, chin tilt, jaw thrust, throw that thing on their face and start, your 30-2 CPR ratio. If someone's already doing those things, code cart, checking IVs, clearing people out of the room, pulling up the chart, all those little things that once those two big things are addressed, that's, helpful. But a lot of times it is more of a rapid response situation, not a code situation. And in those, as a newbie, I would be pulling in my preceptor. If my preceptor's unavailable, my charge nurse, and then you can call a rapid response. And sometimes you don't even have to call a rapid response code overhead. You can call the rapid response nurse directly and be like, hey, I have something that's concerning going on. I'm newer. And I think as a new nurse, it's great to lead with, I'm new, I'm still learning. Because there's a lot of people in that hospital. They're not going to know who's new and who's not, especially the doctors, especially maybe if you're in med surg, those code team nurses or the ICU, they don't know who's new. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's probably travelers and all that, and they don't know anybody's experience. So don't expect anyone to know how much experience you have. You will have to physically tell people. So keep that in mind. And say, hey, you know what? I'm new. And if you tell people that, you're kind of opening the door for them to educate you, which is what you want anyway. And then also like, okay, if I got something wrong, that's pretty reasonable that I didn't know what X, Y, and Z was. And being okay with that, like there's a lot of things you're not going to know. And being able to verbalize, hey, you know what? I'm new here and this happened and I'm not exactly sure. I know something's not right. I can't really put my finger on it, or I don't know exactly what I should be doing. Can you help me work through this situation? And it's a collaborative team kind of thing, not I think this. What do you think? Is this needs to you know what I mean? I felt this pressure back in the day to just always know what was going on. That's not feasible. That's not realistic. Like, why did I ever think that?
Not all knowing.
Well, nursing school made me think that because I got like good grades. So of course I knew everything, right?
It's really it's I actually think it's the worst sin that nursing school does is they tell you, depending on the school, they're pretty brazen about it. Look to the left, look to the right, you know, half of you won't be here. By the end of this, they pump you up and put you in this really weird headspace. And nursing should be a very humbling, compassionate profession, but they've really made it into some sort of badge of honor to pass the NCLEX because it is hard. I mean, there's a lot of information. I know people who were excellent nurses I know a girl who took the NCLEX 7 times. Like, and she's the most caring, kind person. And I know she's an exceptional nurse, but she just couldn't do it. I mean, it is that hard. You were talking about what they could do and then get on the chest. A nurse told me that one of the best things that you can do that's often one of the last things that people think about is documenting. That's something really easy that you can do that you don't have to know how to do. And so if it's your patient and you've called the rapid response and you've already done your round of the compressions and nobody else has started, then documenting is an easy one. You can say, is anybody documenting? And then you can hold up your, I'm going to do it. And then you can, the nice thing is that's something you can feel confident to volunteer to do pretty early. It's a win you can get and be helpful to your peers, and you'll feel like a rock star after you've done it. Like you haven't, you're going to feel like a little bit that you haven't done anything, but you're going to actually be helpful in that. The notes that you took, make sure they're legible, would be really good. So that's one that you can lean into. Don't stand there and wait for people to come in and do compressions. I'm ready to document, but
right.
But if you've got a team of people who know what they're doing, and especially when you don't, documenting is, how to do that.
That's a good,
know how to do that.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. Like the more exposure you have to codes, the less scary it's going to be. And you take those easier jobs, early on, and then you get used to seeing how it flows. And then you can feel more comfortable doing the code card and, kind of not necessarily running things or like going to the airway or whatever it is. But like, I remember I did that. I started with documentation and then I got really comfortable with that. And then I would be, okay, I'm going to be doing compressions. And then I'm going to be doing the meds, pushing the meds. Okay. I've pushed the meds a few times. Now I feel comfortable drawing the meds. Like, so it's not like you're expected to go in and be comfortable to do everything. Like it takes time. And again, that's normal. It's very normal. I think managing expectations is probably the biggest thing that, having reasonable ones is one of the biggest things that's going to save you headaches.
Thinking of managing expectations, I am so grateful for your time today. And I do want to be very respectful of that. I feel like we could just talk for hours about this kind of stuff. And you're really an excellent mentor. So, Katie, I'm so thankful that you've taken the time today. I have a couple of questions for you about mentorship and nursing, because I do think that that's something that would be helpful to me, that I can have somebody who won't judge me, that I can ask questions to, or I can have somebody to help me figure out how to function and just exist in life as a new nurse. So first of all, if I want to find somebody who's a mentor, what can I do? How can I look for that? Do I just put a sign on my neck, or like a shirt, like my shirt, the Get In Loser, We're Going to Mars shirt? Oh, there we go.
Very nice.
It's Cybertruck release day, delivery day. So what can I do to sort of find that mentor without like making myself a target for potentially someone to not be a good mentor to me, or just, embarrass myself? And then in addition to that, if I want to learn more from you, I know you got the podcast that I'm interviewing you on, which is so fun for me. I know you have that, but like, what else do you have that will make me feel like I feel today, that I'm learning from you in this non-judgmental, kind, compassionate way? I would love to know how I can get either mentored by you or at least have a version of that experience?
Great questions. So for mentoring, the way that I recommend going about that. Now, some hospitals may have a formal mentorship program, which is great. Number one, don't have your preceptor be your mentor. Your preceptor sits in on your professional job evaluations. They should not be your mentor. The mentor should help you navigate your preceptor relationship. They should not be that. Even if you and your preceptor get along well, maybe we have a bump in the road. And if you've made the person you confide in the person that is going to be talking to your boss about whether or not you're appropriate for this role, I think we've made a misstep. So what I recommend is those first few weeks on the unit, paying attention to which nurses you respect, not the ones that are really nice and fun and want to hang out with you, but the wants to do a good job, the ones who think rationally, the ones who manage their time well, the ones who might be empathetic or whatever, and also not necessarily the one who's been there the longest. Because someone's been there a long time doesn't mean they're a good nurse, much like just because someone's older doesn't mean they're more mature. So look at find a couple of those people and have the balls to go ask them be your mentor. Just get some, confidence and courage, and you could even do it in text or whatever. But I really encourage you to go up to that person when they're not overwhelmed and when they're not 2 hours behind. Be conscientious of when you ask. Say, hey, you know what? I'm new to this unit. I'm new to nursing. I don't know what I don't know. Marissa's a great preceptor, but I really feel like I also need a mentor. Would you be at all open to maybe getting coffee with me a couple times a month, just while I'm on orientation, just to help me kind of work through a few things?
I'll buy.
Yeah. Yes. Say that. Yes. I will buy. I will go to a place that's near where you live so that it's the least amount of work for you. You want to frame these requests in a way that makes it so easy for them to say yes. You want to be grateful for their time. You don't want to be a know-it-all and insulted at any advice they give you. That's the way that you get important, smart, helpful people to help you. You're going to make your request as easy to say yes to as possible, and you want to make your request reasonable and thoughtful. And if you do that, you will have, and you have this person, a lot of times these people are a wealth of knowledge, but they're so kind and considerate that they're not going to come talk to you and tell you everything that they think that you would need to hear, because you have not asked them and they don't want to assume that you if there's a brand new nurse on the unit, I'm not going to go just be her mentor. She needs to open that door. Right. I could offer that, but I don't know you from Adam. Maybe you don't actually need
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be wary about that too. They might just want to find out some things, So that's how I would recommend going about doing it, is survey the scene first. Don't ask just anybody, because a bad mentor is worse than no mentor. You know what I mean? If you have a mentor who's really negative, who cuts corners, who is cynical, who makes things that are a bigger deal than they actually are, that's not helpful. You would be better without that. So consider who you would be asking. And you've got the online world today. I mean, you could find that connections like that online, but you need to assess after I talk to this person, how do I feel? Do I feel empowered? Do I feel better? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel like I can do this? Or do I feel more nervous? Do I feel worse? Now, feelings are not everything, but we're looking for someone to help us process the complex experience of becoming a nurse. And if you have somebody who does that effectively, it can expedite your ability to feel confident and function independently on your unit. So the value that they would provide is significant. And be respectful of their time. Let's say you have this person and they agree to it. If you meet for coffee, have specific questions. Don't vent. Don't just chill and hang out. I want you to ask specific questions and have and express gratitude for that time. And another thing is, if you ask this person and they decline, please don't take it as rejection. There are a lot of nurses out there who are very overwhelmed in general. Maybe they're precepting a different nurse, or maybe they have a lot going on in their personal life. They just met you. It's 99% sure it is not about you. So don't make it about you. It might be about that their plate is full. And while coffee once or twice a month doesn't seem like a big commitment, maybe right now their mom is sick and they're taking her to chemo 3 times in the next month. And then they know that she gets sick and they're going to be, you know what I mean? Maybe, you know, you never know that kind of stuff. So don't assume that, because I think that can be a big fear. So I would have a couple people in mind, you know, and then also notice if you ever go into other units and there's other people there, you know, and then you can also, if you're really not sure, you can also ask your unit educator. Do you have anybody that would be a good mentor?
Speaking of, I want you to tell me about you being my mentor, if anything like that's possible. But a nurse did tell me a couple of things that are sort of a broader scope mentorship things. One of the things they told me is that being a new nurse, the closest experience they could relate it to was being a new mom.
I was just thinking that.
Because you feel every emotion you have, and you get some weird ones when you're a new mom. You think sometimes you think you're a horrible person, that you're the only person who could ever possibly think this, you're all alone. And so you're not, first of all, and whatever it is, somebody's probably thought it before, and they probably thought of it 10 times. You don't want to tell everybody those things. And kind of related to that, I believe the philosophy of multiple mentors, or the nurse I know believes the philosophy of multiple mentors can be useful. You don't necessarily want your mentors to know that. And somebody doesn't have to be a mentor for a long term. This does not have to be like a job for them. They don't have to you have a mentor like a nurse residency where it's 12 months. You can literally have coffee one time with somebody or take somebody to lunch, and then just sort of get advice. And if you like to gather data, that's a really good way to do it. So take mentorship where you can get it. And it doesn't have to be a prescribed role. You don't actually have to say, would you mentor me? You can say, hey, I'd love to get lunch with you. And it feels a lot less weird and intimidating. I guarantee you that if you ask some nurses if they would mentor you, they're going to panic and feel like they're not capable. But if you ask someone if you'd grab lunch, like you want to pick their brain, or you really admired how they handled a code, they would. The final thing I will say around helping somebody that will mentor you is don't assume that you want to pick the person who's the nicest person with that sweet Southern drawl on the unit. They're not usually the nicest person. Sometimes, I mean, I don't want to, make any assumptions, but they're not always the nicest person. We talked a little bit about how people are kind of looking for that vulnerability. Nursing is ripe with people that want to participate in hazing. I think less so a little bit now, because the latest generation of nurses, like, you guys don't take no crap. So it's significantly better. But I found that the best experiences with mentorships came from the dry nurse who had been there for a while, that took no crap, who wasn't, sweet as honey, but they were professional and they were kind. They would give you the most straightforward advice. They wouldn't beat around the bush about it. And once they believe you, and trust in you and see that you're a good person, they will stick their neck out for you any day of the week. And that high-pitched girly who's wanting to be everybody's friend will not.
Yes. I want to really emphasize the thing that you said about, like, you don't have to frame it like a mentorship, because you're right. There's a lot of people, number one, who would feel overwhelmed by having to do that, but also feel like, I'm not in a position to do that. But like framing these requests, like, I really loved how you handled that situation. I'm just new and I would love to have some perspective. Do you think I could take you to lunch and I could just pick your brain about work stuff like once or twice? Like, framing it like that is much more palatable than necessarily a structured relationship. And who doesn't love someone wanting to buy them lunch and wanting my expertise? Okay. Yeah. Can we go now? I'm hungry. But
Better be good.
Better be good.
Not just to go from McDonald's.
Yes.
We're sitting down somewhere.
We're sitting down
We're
somewhere.
buying an appetizer and a dessert.
But if, like, unfortunately, I do not do necessarily one-on-one mentorship, because as you can imagine, I get a lot of requests and that would not be feasible.
but I'm sure you've got something that could help me.
Yes. So I have a lot of stuff. I was actually surveying. I really have a lot of stuff. So there's this entire podcast, which has full of evergreen content, which is free. I have my blog, which has hundreds of free posts that you could just search if there's a specific need that you have, or I have various topics that you could just check out. But the most like comprehensive way to really hold somebody, walk with them through orientation through their first year are my online courses. We did just release something called an all access pass, which I'm really excited because I kind of get to the point where I'm like, man, I got a lot of courses here. I wonder if there's a way that we can make this more palatable or more easy, just easier to consume for people.
And they
And
build on one another.
They do. And so many of them complement one another. Like if I was a new med-surg nurse, med-surg mindset is very clinically, helps you prepare clinically, but then the residency helps prepare you holistically for that big transition, not just med-surg patient care, because there's a lot more going on. I have the critical thinking course, which also helps put a lot of those pieces together of things I didn't have enough time and space to get into those topics as deep as I need to. I have the preceptor course. While it's for preceptors, it very much helps preceptees learn what's reasonable to expect from their preceptor and how to advocate for when that kind of stuff isn't happening, and which it does sometimes. So I have made this all access pass, which is instead of buying an individual course, you would pay a monthly fee and you would get access to all the courses and all the contact hours, which I can't even remember. There's like probably 70. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, don't.
I think it's close to 100. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of contact hours. So
it's enough to renew your license in most states.
For lots of licenses over and over again, because I think a lot of states are 20, maybe 30 hours, and this is well beyond that. But so that's probably the best place. I have a YouTube channel. You might be watching this on YouTube. They've got a lot of videos there. Hello, if you are. A lot of videos there that are free that you can check out too. And the comment sections are so great. There's people supporting each other. And that also happens in the courses too. We have comment sections on the courses and people are hey, I had this question, or this was my experience, and other people are encouraging each other. I think that is really, really valuable. I think having somebody in your corner, even if it is online, who believes the best in you and wants you to do well and doesn't want this to be this, nursing, I got this job that I'm going to complain about. It's like, hey, I actually like going to work. Feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. And when I leave, I get to enjoy my home life. That is like the sweet spot. That's what we want. We don't want you to be all consumed by nursing, because it will consume you if you let it. But that's true with any job, truly. We want you to have the good boundaries that are kind of unique to nursing and be able to enjoy your life at home and at work. And I think that's truly what, everybody wants. So I'll have a link to it.
FreshRN.com.
Yeah, FreshRN.com is just where everything is, but the membership specifically, I'll have a link to it in the description of this episode that you can check that out. Pay once a month and get or annually, and then you get access to all of the courses up until whenever however long your subscription is how long you have access to it. So
you talked a little bit, but you didn't quite say it like this, but community is really important and you need to go where you can find it. And it may not be on the unit you work for. Online is perfectly acceptable. My community of nurses was on Twitter. That's who I talked to about things anonymously for a while. And so you have one of the best communities. Your comment sections and then anywhere your content is always very supportive. YouTube in particular, the comments are it's a very welcoming place. So definitely lean in there, leverage that. It means a lot to connect with other people. And one of the things about the all access pass or any education is your employer may pay for it. And you should ask, especially if they don't have a nurse residency program or, they're low budget, maybe they're just low on staff. Mm-hmm. And you say, hey, can I have whatever dollars it's like $99 a month right now, or $97 a month.
97 right now, yeah.
For all access pass. And then it's less if you buy longer. If you say, hey, can I have, the full year because we don't have preceptors enough, or we don't have a residency program. This would help me feel more confident and be a better, safer nurse. And I will stay at your facility longer if you will help me feel better about being a nurse. It'd be real hard for them to turn that one down.
I mean,
it's such
that's
a low cost.
no brainer. I mean, we've actually had hospitals who are smaller, who don't have the budget to make a robust onboarding for like a brand new nurse with like a residency or a specific maybe ICU or med surge, who will buy it from us to give to their new nurses. So it actually is substantially cheaper to pay, for an annual membership for this for your first year than for them to, create the education themselves. So, whenever you have a receipt, and then if you do, and a lot of them will reimburse for things that provide contact hours. So ours are provided by the Ohio Nurses Association, and most states will accept most. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at every single state board of nursing, but most states will accept ones that are approved by a state nurses association, which it's Ohio. So, so that's something that, hey, I can get contact hours specific to this unit, in addition to all this other professional development. Yes, a lot of hospitals will have specific funds for nurses. And yeah, you have leverage if they don't provide those resources and you say, hey, I found it. Yeah. Can I get reimbursed?
You have leverage in the market as a nurse right now. So you can ask for a lot.
Yeah.
Education is like the easiest thing to get.
Oh, yeah, it is absolutely the easiest thing. And you're a valuable asset if you're going to be teachable, coachable, and like desiring to do better, because the less work they have to do to make sure that you are doing your job appropriately, the better, So if a lot of times it comes down to just simply asking. They're not going to be like, hey, I found this course that might help you, or found this other resource that's going to help you. No, they're not going to do that. You have to ask for those things. And I think that is a very reasonable ask.
That's a gift to them as well. Frame it as that. Like, I'm just trying to make it so where I don't have to be coached. I know you guys are busy. I can't be in your office every day for mentorship. Your boss is probably not going to be someone you see a lot in a lot of cases. So you need to figure out how you can get the resources through human beings, and then, other things to help you feel more confident. Katie, this has been so good. I really appreciate you speaking with me, the new nurse who just has lots of nursing friends who've had weird experiences, and helping me feel more confident. Like, I had so many more questions, but you gave me so much with just the few that we did get through today. I'm sure, if you're interested, we could have conversations later, but I do want to be respectful of your time. And we've talked a little bit about the All Access Pass and how they can get to that, and, resources to make it really attainable. I just want us to make sure that you close out telling them where to go next, and any final words you have.
Yeah. So if you guys liked this, I would love to hear. Me and Brittany can do more questions or send us questions, and we're happy to work through those and help encourage you guys as, you become the amazing nurses that you're working so hard to become.
Questions. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, comment, email us, contact@freshrn.com, or go to our website, freshrn.com/contact. But just commenting on this would be really helpful. And we can work through those. We have some in mind that we want to do, but it would be great to hear, what you're struggling with and how we would work through that. So if you want to, I think the best thing is to stay informed is to be on the email list. So if you go to freshrn.com, you can just hop on the email list there, and check out our blog and our podcasts and the courses and all that. Freshrn.com/courses. So you'll have the full list there. And we actually gave our website a facelift recently. So I want you guys to go check it out. It's beautiful. So I just thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, all the thingies. Tell other people about it. Yes. We appreciate you guys, and stay fresh.